Hi, team. This is George. I know this was probably a bad time to have the live session, so I'm going to go ahead and just make a recording since no one was able to make it. I'll try some different times. Or actually, I'm going to put out a little survey to see what times will work because they're never consistent about what times will work for all of us. So I'm just going to kind of get an overview and try to hit some of those times. If anybody wants to get together, we can absolutely do that. We have some amazing discussions this week from my perspective. Legal considerations in hiring. I kind of want to highlight this one because that is a big, big deal. Um, and why are legal considerations in hiring a big deal? Well, from my perspective, where we always did employment testing and we'd hire people out from tests and different assessments and things like that that we would put them through, the legal requirements in that area were put there and they can really actually help the company because a lot of times if you don't know how to create tests legally, you may or may not be hiring the right people because you may or may not be testing the right stuff. Like, for instance, there's one test that I looked at, and this was in another company where I was a consultant. um, they had a box, so just picture a box, and it had a bolt welded inside the box. The box was metal, and you could not see inside the box. But you had to slide your hand inside the box, and you had to put a nut on the bolt. That was the first step to get to the rest of the testing. Well, if you hadn't had a, and this was for an entry level position, so that person, whoever was there, was going to go through like an internship or an apprenticeship, but they wanted somebody that had some mechanical abilities. Well, this test had disparate impact. In this case, it was against women. It had disparate impact on women, and the reason it was having that impact was because if you haven't done anything like that in the past, you don't know how to put that nut on the bolt, but you can be trained in about 10 seconds. And it is illegal to test somebody on a skill that you can be trained in such a short time. The whole key is when you can't see the bolt and you have a nut to put on it, you place the nut on the bolt and then you spin it backwards. So you spin it left on normal threads, and then you'll feel its seat, and then you start turning it to tighten the old righty tighty, lefty loosey. So you could teach somebody that. That took what, 10 seconds to teach somebody if they didn't know how to do that already. So you can't deny employment, especially in a trainee position, for something that they'll be taught to do, and they'll be taught, and it can be taught in such a short time. So we were leaving out, well, not we, the company was leaving out a whole group of people because they couldn't pass that part of the test. And they were, you know what? It was a trainee position, so they were leaving out qualified people as well. Um, so things like that are important when we look at legal considerations for hiring. When it comes to testing, are we testing valid things that people need to know prior to being hired? Are our tests consistent? Are our tests validated? And validated is a very specific word that reaches back to the Code of Federal Regulations if you happen to receive any federal funding. Um, so you have to go through a process that makes sure that your test A, test what it says it's going to test, and B, test what is necessary for the minimum requirements for the job. You're not testing for uh, middle of the road requirements or advanced requirements. You have to test for the minimum requirements to get into that job because they can get the rest as they are in the job. So the test has to be for minimum requirements. So those are just some thoughts on this because legal considerations in hiring, I know they go far beyond just employment testing, but employment testing is a big thing because you get companies sued for millions and millions of dollars um, for this, and that's bad. But what's even worse is people who could do the job aren't getting hired if the tests are not accurate. So just some food for thought, and have a great week.